So this is our gossip segment, continued, about Georgia Douglas Johnson. I already made a claim that someone might have pinched my discovery of her plays, and the next thing that I'm going to tell you is about her somewhat fraught relationship that she didn't know was fraught with Mr. Walter White, who was then president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. As you see, in 1934, she wrote him a letter to ask why, if there was a League of Writers Against Lynching formed by the NAACP, she wasn't invited. And he wrote her back and said, "Oh, we must have lost your letter in the mail. You've certainly been on the list." And then she sends him some plays that he never uses and get filed away in the, I would say the cylindrical file, but they didn't get thrown away. They just got stuffed into a folder. People criticized her rather superficial style and her hurriedly done work that looked too messy for them to use for the NAACP. And Walter White eventually tells her that the end of the story is a bummer, so it should be more positive. And she rewrites the play and adds a different ending. So, just for your information, here is the actual list of the Independent Writers Committee Against Lynching and the people invited, which includes Willa Cather, Erskine Caldwell, I believe Eugene O'Neill, and several of the writers of the day. Nella Larson is also on the list, William Faulkner. And you can look through this as you like. The copy of the play that I added, and yet they paused, she changed the title of that play to A Bill to be Passed, and in her revised version, the bill did pass in the Congress. Of course, this still hasn't happened today. The general idea of the play is that there is a church it's small and unpretentious, probably in Georgia, and the reverend and the deacon have a conversation about what's going on with Congress considering the anti-lynching law. And they mention that they have sent Henry Williams, an educated young man, to advocate for the passage of the bill. And then people come into the church and begin singing. And one woman reports that, in fact, a young man named Joe Daniels, who was beaten and driven out of town for bootlegging, is going to be lynched because a white bootlegger was murdered. So the story then shifts in its scenery to the U.S. Congress, and the young man, Henry Williams, is not allowed into the hall to hear the arguments, but there's another reporter there, and the reporter and the guard and Williams listen to what's happening as they try to filibuster so as not to pass the anti-lynching law. And Williams says they don't want to finish, they want to keep us on the cross. So then in the next scene, we return back to the church, and the people in the church hear that the lynching is about to take place. So they find out that the lynching hill, which they can see from the church, that they have chained and are going to drag the black man to the lynching hill and murder him during the course of the play. The end of the play is really difficult to read, so I didn't save it for you. But as you can imagine, in this version of the play, you can hear the screams of the man being lynched, and the people in the church are devastated. And then they go back to Congress, where a whole bunch of nonsense is going on, and they refuse to pass the anti-lynching bill.